but I did just put the academic advising line in the chat for anyone that wants to give advisors a call. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping rules. So this is the Advanced Time Management Skills Workshop. We do have a basic time management workshop if you do want to use it. You can refer back to it with our YouTube page. So I am putting the YouTube page in the chat right here. So that is for you guys to utilize. So in case you're like, what is she talking about? Or if I refer back to one of the references that we talked about in the basic workshop, that is what I'm referring back to you. So you guys can go back to your YouTube page. So this is a workshop. It is not required for class participation. So Dan and I love helping out students past our usual work hours, so do not feel that this is for extra credit or anything like that. All you guys are here right now to enhance your academic and professional skills. I'm really proud of you if you do want to learn more about time management. So, as you can see, Dan and I do not have our mics restricted. So if you notice that your mic is restricted, that is because we did this on purpose. I myself have done this in the past as well, but I tend to notice that when we restrict students' microphones, we get less distractions. I used to do this all the time by accident where I would forget to mute myself, and then we have like a lot of background noise, especially since we are recording. We do want to make sure that we get through this presentation quickly and just make sure that there's less distractions for everyone. So I do apologize, Jennifer. That is why your mic is restricted. If you do have a question at any point, like Dan said, you can either ask it in the chat or you can wait for a Q&A session at the very end. But if you are encountering a technical issue such as you can't hear me, you're not able to see the screen, or something does occur and everything's freezing, please give our IT team a call. The number is right on the screen, but I will put it in the chat as well. But I also highly recommend logging out and logging back in with your student email. For some reason, Microsoft Teams works better when the student email is logged in instead of your personal email. And then we always love to see students on camera, but you do not have it on. I always tell my students, if you're going to attend these workshops, try to keep it professional. If you feel like something that is not appropriate, that should not be on camera, that's okay. You do not have to have your camera on. My camera is not on only because it works better if when I'm presenting and the slideshow goes more efficiently if I have the camera off. So that's why my camera is not on. As always, please raise your hand at the very end if you do want to ask any questions, and ensure that all questions are related to the workshop topic. Again, I did put the academic advising line in the chat in case anyone does need to talk to an advisor for the next hour. If not, you can give us a call tomorrow morning and we can definitely help you out. But without further ado, we are going to be talking about tonight's agenda. So we're going to be going over overview of time management skills. Again, we go into more in depth about basic time management skills in a previous workshop, and I did put the YouTube channel in the chat in case anyone wants to utilize that after this workshop. We're going to go over the why time management skills are important. We're going to be talking about what is an Eisenhower matrix and kind of the examples of it. Then I'm going to go over the batch processing technique and then the Pomodoro technique. So if you guys are looking at this and be like, what are these techniques? Do not worry. We're going to go over that with you, and I'll make sure we at least have a better understanding of it. Okay, so like I said, this is from a previous workshop that we did from our basic one, but key time management skills. Organization. How do you organize your time? Do you use a calendar? Do you use an organizer? Do you have things on your phone? Do you write things down? What keeps you organized? That's very important. Prioritization. That is something I am still learning, and one thing I do want to give before we get into more involved with time management. No one is going to be efficient or like professional in time management. Okay, things happen all the time, and we have to adjust what used to work with what used to work with us, and we always want to make sure that you kind of understand that, give yourself some grace. If you are someone that's really good at time management skills, maybe help someone out that might need a little bit more help. Maybe someone in your family or one of your classmates. Like Carla does, she writes things down and leaves herself notes. That's an excellent idea. That works for Carla. but do not feel that some of the examples that we might give. So say if Carla writes things down or she leaves notes for herself, that doesn't mean that's going to work for Jennifer. So these are just ideas and you yourself can decide what works for you. So that's why it's really good to prioritize. So like I said, things are going to be due this Friday, October 17th. So that's why you want to make sure you prioritize your time this week to make sure you finish handing everything in. So that's why we're going to go over the importance of being able to prioritize things, whether it be schooling, whether it be family stuff, social events, etc. And then goal setting. So an example of a goal setting would be I want to complete my discussion board before the due date of Wednesday. Wednesdays are when most discussion boards are due, so that's like a little bit of a goal and an excellent way to better manage your time if you do it before the deadline. That way you can ask any questions you might have to your professor if you need it. And then communication. So we talked a lot about this in our basic time management workshop. Communication is really important, not only because it gives yourself time, but it's also really important to give your professors a heads up or even your academic advisor. So if you know something is happening, please communicate as soon as possible. You don't have to go into the specifics about what is going on, but it is really crucial to let someone know just in case we need to plan and prioritize. That's really good about being time management, making sure you communicate so you can get one thing off your list. And then we have planning. So in our basic time management workshop, we went over how you can plan things. We do have an example of like a little bit of a calendar, but planning, how are you going to plan your day? Are you going to do it by day? Are you going to do it by hour, by week, by month? However you want to do it and whatever works for you, that's an example of what about planning would look like. And then we have delegation. How are you going to delegate how to organize your time management skills? What are you going to put first? So we just want to make sure you give yourself some grace, but you also want to delegate that. And then this is something that I myself have to learn, stress management. So I am the type of person that stresses over every little thing. I will admit I have anxiety. I overthink. I just love to cause myself my own stress. So sometimes what I tell my students, is this stress worth it? Is it something that you can control? And if you can't control, how am I going to handle it? So that's why stress management is really important, and having a basic or even better time management skills can really help you with that. And then problem solving. So everyone deals with stress and difficult situations differently. So are you the type of person that if you have a problem, or if you're trying to organize your week or day, how are you going to solve this problem? If you forgot that you have a project due for work, but you have this quiz that's going to be due the same day, how are you going to problem solve that? Everything works out and just make sure you have enough time to plan out your day. And I understand how you stress and think a lot, Martina. I am the same way. Do not worry about it. Okay, I know we went over like the overview about time management really fast, but again, if you want to go into more detail, again, check out our YouTube page. For those that just came in, I'm going to put our YouTube page right here in the chat in case you do want to go over the basic time management workshop. But now we're going to go over why are time management skills important. So this is something that a lot of students tend to not understand. They're like, okay, I understand what time management is, but how can it relate to me? Carla, I also deal with a lot of anxiety and depression a lot, which does contribute a lot to my time management skills. So thank you for openly sharing with that. I completely understand. But we do want to make sure we talk about why this is important. So some of the examples that have really keyed students in on, it's managing your time effectively is an important skill to develop, not only just for school, but it's also going to apply to your social life, it's going to apply to your family, it's going to apply to your work life as well. So one thing I like to tell my students, time management is not going to be like a snap of a finger thing. It's going to take a while and things are going to come up. So you may be able to get on the ball with your time management skills in one term, but then another term happens. So for example, I've had students when their kids are in school, they're really great at making sure they're getting their work in on time, they have a routine. And then we go into the summer months. Term one and term two can be really difficult for my students because that's when their kids are out of school. So that means they have to change their time management skills to make sure that their family is prioritized first before working on that school. So we want to make sure that you manage your time effectively. Again, we do go over in a basic time management workshop how to kind of do that. But essentially, if you do it early and as soon as you can, the better off you'll be. And then having strong time management skills can ultimately lead to accomplishing key goals and advancing in your personal and professional life. So if you are someone that's really good about due dates, and if you are really good at just making sure you prioritize things and making sure that you're on top of things, that's going to really help you with your personal life. That means you can take more jobs on, and even in your professional life. So I am a team lead and I'm also an academic advisor. So I'm not going to say I'm the best at time management skills, but I was well enough in my academic advising role to become a team lead. So now I help my academic advisors while also having my own caseload. So I am pretty okay about managing my time management skills. Again, that does not mean that I'm the best at it. No one is great at time management. So again, just because I'm team lead does not mean that I'm going to gloat and say I'm the best. I am not. It's just something that I'm still learning even after over 2 years in this role. So it is something that I am developing in my professional life as well. And then good time management skills allow you to accomplish more in less time. So these are for my procrastinators, aka myself when I was in college. So if you are someone that tends to work on discussion boards Wednesday night, or if you were tend to someone that worked on an assignment Saturday night when it's due on Sunday, you do want to make sure that you kind of get out of this habit, especially when I was, because I sometimes had questions and I was like, oh shoot, I only have 24 hours to hear back from my professor. And professors have 48 hours to respond back to you. So, if you are able to have better time management skills, you are able to accomplish more. You have more time to be able to focus on things, and you're going to have less stress. Shelby, we are on slide 5, if that helps. Dan, yes.
Speaking of procrastination and professors, I just want to mention, Carly's already mentioned it earlier, but as you guys know, we are starting week 8 today. If you're behind, if you're stressed, if you're whatever, and you need to talk to your professor, please do it today. The earlier you can do it, the better. There, because we classes end early, Friday or Saturday, depending on the due date. And if you need a little extra help or whatever, please email them today, because they're going to get hundreds of emails from other students as well, and it's going to build up, and it's going to probably take a hot minute to get a response. So
Mm-hmm.
do it as soon as you can. But that's my 2 cents there.
Yes, exactly. So, like I said, most things are going to be due on Friday, but I've had some students say that their work is due on Wednesday. So, again, if you haven't already logged in for this week, please check your announcements and see when things are due. Yes, Greta, I also get stressed out real fast, but I had one advisor tell me, you are your own cause of stress. Is this stress really worth getting worked up for? And I was like, you're right. If it is something that you need to stress upon, how can you work through that? If it's not something that you need to stress on, what made you feel stressed about it? So yeah, like Jennifer says, she blocks an hour a day just to work on school stuff. If that works for Jennifer, excellent. That does not mean that Greta has to do it, but these suggestions always help some people, so it might help for you if you are someone that's struggling with it. So thank you guys for these ideas. Um, Time management skills do help you stay focused and disciplined, which can reduce stress. A lot of the stress sometimes comes from procrastination, sometimes communication, pretty much all the different slides that I've talked about right here. When you have problems with the key time management skills right here, that does tend to increase stress. So when you have, I'm not going to say when you have mastered it, but when you have an idea or if you are comfortable with your time management skills, you tend to be able to work on things more, which can do a lot of stress or reduce a lot of stress. We did talk about this in another workshop, but stress can actually hinder your overall academic performance. So we just want to make sure we are taking care of ourselves, especially with feeling burnt out. So I do want to remind you all, this isn't really related to time management skills, but it also kind of is. Next term starts on Monday, October 20th. So there is no break in between the end of this term and next term. So the earlier you complete your work, which means you are able to get your time management skills and work on things early, the longer break you're going to have. So again, term 3 starts on Monday, October 20th, which is next week, a week from today. Just as a reminder in case anyone is confused about when next term starts. And then achieving tasks through effective time management can lead to a great sense of accomplishment and increased feeling of satisfaction. So, I myself struggle with anxiety and depression, and one of those things is not feeling a good sense of accomplishment and never feeling satisfied. However, sometimes when you are able to get things done early, you can either achieve more things or you can be proud of yourself. So I do want to tell everyone, give yourself some grace. If you worked on your discussion board tonight, great. Give yourself time to feel appreciative of all the work that you have done. Don't just get in that mindset of, oh, I worked on my discussion board, now I have to work on my final exam. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some breaks. It is proven that if you give yourself breaks, or if you reward yourself after doing an assignment or whatever thing you were doing, you typically tend to do better. So that's why we just want to make sure you guys feel increased feelings of satisfaction, get those happy endorphins going. Um, but yeah, you do not get a week break. The next break you guys are going to get is at the end of term 3, which is December 14th. But now we are going to move on. Okay, so you probably have never heard of this. I first heard of this when we first presented this workshop. This is called the Eisenhower matrix. So the goal for the Eisenhower matrix is to help you separate your task into 4 quadrants. So the first quadrant is going to be right here. It's under urgent and important. So these are considered tasks with deadlines or consequences. So these are like your discussion boards or your assignments. This would fall under quadrant 1 only because discussion boards are due on Wednesday, assignments are due on Sunday, and you could have consequences if you don't complete them in time, whether it be half credit, a 0, or no credit at all. So this would fall under quadrant 1, urgent and important. But that's for school. You could have deadlines for your kids, you could have deadlines for your own personal work, whatever you do, but that is just an example. Then we have quadrant 2, which is important but not as urgent. So these are tasks with unclear deadlines that contribute to long-term success. So if you, I'm trying to think of an example about what would fall under quadrant 2. Not necessarily, I guess for this purpose, quadrant 2, you, for some majors, you guys have the option of taking an internship. Now, it is not required, and there's not necessarily a deadline for some majors, but we have typically seen that
I
students
think
that
there's
do.
an example on the next slide of what a
Oh my
quadrant
God,
2
is
would look
there?
like. I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to make my brain do work, so we'll go over that later.
You're
But
welcome.
that's what quadrant 2 would be. Um, So I guess just like finishing off on an example that I would give would be having an internship done when I'm in school, because a lot of times employers, when students do graduate, they typically like to see students with an internship and hands-on experience compared to those without one. Okay. Shelby, if you have questions about internships, you can ask your academic advisor about that and they can help you, or you can call the advising line. Okay. So this is quadrant 3. This is not urgent and important, so tasks with unclear deadlines that contribute to long-term success. Um, so again, we'll go over the examples about what that might look like, but this is what quadrant 3. It's not urgent, but it is important. Then we go into quadrant 4, which is not important and not urgent. So these are unnecessary tasks, distractions, or time wasters. So again, we're going to go over the example right here. So for example, 1, again, remember how it's urgent and important. This is what I talked about. Homework assignments, take-home exams. For if you're someone that's for someone that's working, maybe they have a conference proposal deadline. So these are something that you have to prioritize. These are will go under quadrant 1. Let's see, quadrant 2. So like I said, these are not urgent, but it is important. So reviewing lecture notes before you have a quiz or before you work on your discussion board. Going to the gym if you are someone that wants to focus on their health. Planning a project that's due in 3 months. Setting up a goal for study groups. So if you are someone that loves to study with others, that is something that you don't have to do, but it is important for your schooling. So as a student, quadrant 2 is key to academic success. So this task is placed in this quadrant are the ones that you should schedule using a planner, or if you are someone that wants to do a calendar or write something down, this will help maximize your time and help you achieve your goals. So now we are in quadrant 3. So this is urgent, but not that important. So responding to emails and phone calls. So say if your advisor gave you a call, it's not it's not that important or it could be important, but you do want to respond back to them, especially since we talked about how in order to improve your time management skills, it's really important to communicate. So if your advisor gave you a call, more than likely it's for an important reason. So give them a call back. If your professor emailed you, make sure you email them back. 1 second. Sorry, I just had to cough for a second. Attending a New York City excursion tonight that was posted on the SPS Engage. So again, that might be helping you for your own professional development. Fielding unexpected interruption from work. Again, that's not that important, but it can help with your time management skills so you can have some time to focus. Doing a favor for someone. So this is why it's called delegate or avoid. If possible, task in this quadrant 3 should be avoided or delegated to someone else. So if this is something that you can push off, or if you can like have someone else do it, that can definitely help. Not only can help delegate the responsibility to them, but it can also help a team member for help, and you can help them out when they need your help. And then quadrant 4, this is both a non-important and non-urgent one. So these are something that you should not be doing, especially when it comes to schooling. So if you're trying to work on your paper, try to put your phone away. If you are someone like me that gets distracted a lot, try not to check or post on social media. Focus on your paper. Um, Attend unnecessary meetings. So if there is a meeting that is like voluntary and you don't have to be here, maybe try to avoid that, especially if you have a deadline coming up. FaceTiming friends for hours. Give me 1 second. Maybe binge watching your favorite show. Again, we shouldn't say don't do this, but if you are someone that tends to get distracted a lot and it's not that important, not that urgent, try to do this when you have more free time. So these are tasks or activities that should be removed on your to-do list as they can get in the way of accomplishing your goals. So before I move on, can someone give me an example about what an urgent or important task would be in your own schooling? So from quadrant 1 right here, this little green box. And there's really not right or wrong answer. So based on the examples right here, what is something in your schooling that would be considered for quadrant 1? And as a hint, the first bullet point would really help you. Yes, yes. Miss Torres is correct. Assignment due 3 days from opening assignments. Perfect. That's a deadline. That's important. Urgent. Perfect. Okay. For quadrant two, what is something that is important but not urgent? Based on the examples that we gave in this little box in yellow right here. Shelby, very close. I would consider that quadrant four only because you want social media is not urgent and not important. So that's very good for quadrant four. So you just gave us quadrant four. I'm looking for quadrant two. So something that's important, but it's not urgent. Kids school homework due on Friday. Um, yeah, planning a project that's due in 3 months. Carla, that is perfect. Alicia, I would say that's what your example, that would probably fall under one because it is a deadline. Carla, that's perfect because it's a project that's due in 3 months. So that's quadrant number two. So for quadrant number three, what is something that is urgent but not that important based on the example that we have provided in this blue box right here? Perfect, Carla. That is something that's urgent but not that important. Is doing a favor for someone. That is a perfect example. Again, you don't have to follow the Eisenhower matrix, but this is if you are someone that's having trouble like bettering management their time, this is kind of example of like how to prioritize what needs to be done, what is important that you can hold off, what is something that is urgent but like not that important at the time, and then overall what is not urgent and not important. So before we move on, is everyone okay with kind of like the Eisenhower matrix so far? Can I get like a thumbs up if it's like okay for everyone so far? Yay! Okay. This is just one way of better organizing your time. Again, you don't have to follow it, but if you are someone that's a visual like me, maybe writing, if you just take these little boxes, maybe writing things down that can better help you manage your time, such as prioritizing what is urgent, important, not urgent, and not important during your everyday life. That might help better manage your time later on. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about the batch processing technique. So batch processing is a time management technique that includes grouping similar tasks together and setting aside time to complete them all or work on them until a predetermined point on time. Again, I'm going to reread it over just in case anyone needs to hear it again. The batch processing technique is a time management technique that includes a grouping similar tasks together and setting aside time to complete them all or work on them until a predetermined point in time. So, the purpose of this technique is to minimize distractions, which again, this is what we talked about in quadrant three. Create a workflow that enables concentration, attention to detail, and productivity. So, a lot of the time, students do struggle with time management only because they get easily distracted, whether it be on their phones, their TV, whether it be trying to do their work during work, or if their family's just distracting them. That's when they start to lose time management because they get easily distracted. So, building these metaphorical boundaries with your time makes it easier to complete a task or a group of tasks without breaking your workflow. So, I forgot who said this earlier in the chat, but dedicating an hour a day for homework, this would be example of that because you're setting yourself a time to solely focus on your homework or at least your schoolwork for that 1 hour, and that you're minimizing distractions during that 1 hour. So time batching can be used to separate any task, but they are often split into two categories. So we have shallow and deep. So a shallow task is an activity that is quick and easy and doesn't require much energy. For example, doing a since we're in week 8, I'm gonna say the end of term questionnaire. So sometimes your professor wants you to fill out this questionnaire to see how the class went, any improvements, and just to get your ideas and opinions about the class. So that's a shallow task only because it's quick and easy and it's not going to require much brain work unless you are someone that loves to go into detail. For sure, go through that. And then a deep task is a lengthy project that is going to require more time and energy. So this might be a final exam. So I know a lot of final exams were due week 7, but you might have a final exam due this week. So this might be a deep task because it's going to require a little bit of time for you to focus and have more time and energy to do it. So we are going to go over examples of this, but how to use the time batching technique. Determine your task. So if you are someone that loves writing things down, what is your task for the day? What is your task for the week? What kind of task do you need to complete? For example, go into Blackboard, look at Unit 8, and see what you have to do for that week. Do you have to do a quiz? Do you have to do a final reflection? Do you have a final exam? Do you have a final paper, etc.? What tasks do you need to complete? If it's for work, do you have any projects due? Do you need to have a phone call or do you have to do a deadline for work? Like whatever you might need to do. Batch your task. So once you figure out what you need to complete, find related tasks that make sense to do one right after the other. So if you want to break it down by school, if you want to break it down by social, if you want to break it down by family or work, what might help? So for example, I think Jennifer said she dedicates an hour a day. So Jennifer does an hour a day of schoolwork. So she batched her time just doing schoolwork. She might do work stuff for half an hour after work. She might organize everything so she can go into work the next day feeling a lot better about what she needs to do. For family stuff, so say if you need to help your kids with their schoolwork, you're going to dedicate 2 hours a night helping your kids with their schoolwork. Again, we want to make sure that you keep a realistic time frame, but that just might be an example. Evaluate your process. So once you complete your time batching process, assess how well you did. How long were you able to stay focused? How many tasks were you able to complete in the amount of time you gave yourself? So for me, when I was in college, I found a learning technique that really worked for me. It was for every 15 minutes, I rewarded like 5 minutes to just go on my phone or do something that I really enjoyed. I'm not saying you should do this, but that was what really helped me. And then when I was in anatomy and physiology class, I remember I saw someone do this I thought was genius. For every chapter they read, they were rewarded with like a candy bar or like a couple pieces of their favorite food. That was their reward for dedicating their time to read that whole chapter. Again, whatever you want to do, that will definitely help you. But this is just another example about if you are someone that has a hard time organizing what's urgent, what you may need to do, this time batching technique will really help you with that. And then for all my visual learners, here's an example. This is a daily routine. So you work from 8:30 and then all the way until 10:30, and then maybe you have some open spots left. So here's what you guys need to get done today. So you wrote down all the tasks that you need to get done. Send an email to academic advisor. Go to the post office. Complete week 7 discussion board post. Pick up dinner, pay bills online. So those are the stuff that you needed to do. Now you need to figure out how to batch it up. So let's see. Does anyone want to give an example about where they might send an email to an academic advisor around like what time? based on like the blanks that we have here. If you can't read the screen, 1 o'clock, there's a break, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, excuse me, and then 7:30. I would do 1. Perfect. So Jennifer would send an email to academic advisor at 1. You may go to the post office before you go to soccer practice at 3. You may pay bills online at 7:30, or you may pick up dinner at 3, like whatever you want. This is really just an example about, especially if you are a visual learner, how you might batch up that time. Again, you don't have to follow this, but if you are someone that the Eisenhower technique doesn't work, this can work as well. And then this is by theme. So if you are someone that doesn't want to do daily and you want to see weekly, and if this is too small, I can like kind of go over it with you. This is a weekly task batching by theme. So if you are a colored person like I am, you maybe have a colored theme for this one. So for this one, they put blue as planning. They put fitness as white. They might have personal as pink. Um, they might do brainstorming as green. Anything that's creative, they might put as this aqua color. Again, you don't have to follow this, but if you are someone that wants to time batch by like color to help you visualize what you need to do, this is kind of an example about what it might look like. And then the Pomodoro technique. But before I move on to that, is everyone okay with kind of like task batching? Can I get like a thumbs up if everyone's okay? Yay, a lot of thumbs up. Okay. So far for what we learned so far, are people going to use the task batching or the Eisenhower method? I'm just curious of what your thoughts are so far. I like the task batching. Perfect. Jennifer likes the task batching. Do you guys like the task back? Oh my God, I can't even say that. The task batching, or do you like the Eisenhower method better? Eisenhower. See, outer one's different. Task batching. Perfect. Yeah, like I said, there's not really a right or wrong answer. Everyone's going to do a little bit differently. So I'm glad that there's like a balance between the two. Okay, so now we're going to go over the Pomodoro technique. So this is a time management method developed by Francisco, I'm not going to say the last name, in the late 1980s. It involves working in 25-minute intervals. I don't know who said that, but someone said they do like a 25 5-minute break. So you guys are doing the Pomodoro method, followed by a 5-minute break. So this technique helps improve focus, minimize distractions, prevent burnt out, and boost motivation. So this technique may help you if you find little distractions often derail the entire workday, especially for those that might be suffering from ADHD or ADD. Consistently work past the point of optimal productivity. So, in case you didn't know, studies have shown that people have they have windows of when they are most productive. So for me personally, I am productive in the morning. I have like a 3-hour window from like say 8 to 11 where I am very productive. So after my productivity window, I'm not going to say I stop working, but I get more distracted by the afternoon comes in. I have to be more focused. I have to be more disciplined on myself. So that's my productivity window. And that's really the point where I do my optimal productivity. 1 second. Then this technique might work for you if you have lots of open-ended work that can take unlimited amounts of time. So, for example, studying for an exam, researching a blog post, doing research for a research paper, etc., are overly optimistic when it comes to how much you get done in a day. And we did like a little thing, aren't we all? I am a type of person that loves writing a whole list of things to do. Do I actually get it done in all in one day? No, but this technique might help me do that. And enjoy gamified goal setting. So this is what we talked about really early on in this presentation. One of the things where we talk about time management is goal setting. We talked about that a little bit with Eisenhower as well, but this is really important. Again, not every technique is going to work for each person, but this might be your technique. So to kind of help explain more about this technique, I am going to share my screen and we're going to watch a YouTube video, and then Dan is going to put it in the chat in case anyone does want to refer back to it. But let me just share my screen. Hopefully the audio works. Share sound.
Welcome back to the To-Do's channel.
Loud and clear.
It's Naomi, and in today's video we are going to talk about the Pomodoro technique, which is a productivity method that many of my colleagues swear by, and we think it might be helpful for you too. The Pomodoro technique was developed by Francesco Cirillo in the late 1980s when he was struggling with his studies. The technique uses a timer to break down work into short intervals, which are typically 25 minutes in length, followed by a short break. These intervals are known as pomodoros. Pomodoro is Italian for tomato, and it's named after the tomato-shaped kitchen timer that Cirillo used. This may sound a little bit too simplistic to begin with, but stick with us because we believe the pomodoros can help you for a variety of reasons. Like if you find that little distractions often derail your entire workday, you consistently work past the point of optimal productivity. You have lots of open-ended work that can take any amount of time, like studying for an exam or researching an article. You are overly optimistic with how much you think you can get done in a day. Or if you enjoy gamifying goal setting. It is very simple. You start with a to-do list and a timer. I quite like this little one because it's visual and I have these all over my house, but you can use a digital timer as well. You set your timer for 25 minutes, you focus on one task until the timer rings, and then once you've completed your task, you mark off one Pomodoro, record what you completed, and then have a short 5-minute break. And after completing 4 Pomodoros, you can take a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes. The Pomodoro technique has 3 main rules. Number 1, break down complex tasks into small actionable steps. Number 2, combine small tasks that are going to take less than 1 Pomodoro. And number 3, once a Pomodoro is set, the timer must go off. So if you complete your work a little bit earlier than anticipated, it is expected that you would do a little bit of extra research or a bit of learning or developing a new skill. Personally, I'm not a fan of number 3. I feel like if you finish your work early, you should probably clock off early. But them's the rules. The Pomodoro technique has been proven time and time again to be incredibly effective, and these are the reasons why. Getting started becomes easier. Procrastination actually has very little to do with a lack of self-control or laziness. It's most often us trying to avoid our own negative feelings. And so when tasks are overwhelming, it's a lot easier to break something down into 25 minutes just to get you started. Number 2 is combating distractions. It would be really nice to blame technology for all of our distractions, but studies have shown that actually over half of all workday distractions are self-inflicted, which means that we're pulling ourselves out of focus. We are all familiar with that feeling of, I'll just reply to that email real quick, or I need to get back to that message, or let me just check and see if that person has responded. The Pomodoro technique helps you to resist those types of self-interruptions and retrain your brain for focus. Number 3 is visualizing your time. When you start working in short timed sessions, time goes from this abstract concept into a very measurable concrete thing. It becomes a Pomodoro, which is a unit of both time and effort. Whether you visualize it using a tomato emoji in your to-do list or simply a kitchen timer, the concept of time goes from being something that is negative, time lost, to a positive representation of what you've accomplished. Number 4, gamifying your productivity. Every Pomodoro provides the opportunity to improve on the last. So if you weren't perfect in the last 25 minutes, you can try and be a little bit better with your focus in the next 25 minutes. It's more about consistency than perfection. Here are some quick tips for using the Pomodoro technique. Plan out your Pomodoros in advance. Take 15 minutes at the beginning or the end of your workday if you're planning for the next day. Have a look at your to-do list and jot down how many Pomodoros you think it will take you to complete your tasks. If you have an 8-hour workday, Try and make sure that your Pomodoros don't go over about 12 Pomodoros for a day. You really want to keep 2 to 4 Pomodoros in the bank, just because we all have those uninterrupted and unplanned tasks, and sometimes tasks take a little bit longer than you think. Experiment with the length of your Pomodoros. Some work requires extended periods of a creative flow state. Think coding, writing, composing. So 25 minutes might feel just a little bit too short. Some people swear that a 50-minute work stint and a 10-minute break is the perfect balance. In the times that I have tried Pomodoro, this has been true for me. I find 25 minutes just a little bit too short, but it completely depends on what it is that you're trying to do. And then some people prefer a full 90 minutes of work and then a 20 to 30-minute break afterwards. However, for tasks that you've been putting off for one reason or another, something you just need to get started on, smaller tasks, things that you can batch together, 25 minutes might feel a little bit too long, and so you might actually benefit from making your work sessions 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even just 5 minutes. There are some Pomodoro purists out there that would argue otherwise, but I'm pretty sure you can make a Pomodoro any length that you want. Get away from screens during breaks. If your Pomodoro work sessions happen on a computer, try not to default to your phone screen on your break. I know it is so difficult to do. I make this mistake often myself. But we all know that we feel better when you stand up, you move, you stretch, you go outside, you take a walk. I work from home and I quite like using my breaks to actually do some chores around my house. So I'll put away laundry or empty the dishwasher. And I know that sounds a little bit boring and mundane, actually it pretty much is, but I find that it just helps me to switch off from work mode and move my body a little bit. However, my preferred break, now that I think about it, would be to just lie on my sofa and read a book. But whatever you do, your break is going to be so much more mentally refreshing if you can manage to stay away from the hypnosis of screens. So that's the Pomodoro technique in a nutshell. It is a very simple yet powerful way to boost your productivity. If you like this video, then you might also like our video on analysis.
Okay, so again, I know it's a little bit lengthy, but for my visual learners, this is just like another technique that you can try. Again, you don't have to try all these techniques. If there's something that you worked out with, I think someone mentioned the frog technique. That can work for you guys too. But this is just an example about what she described about. So for this example, you need to write a 5-page research paper on a topic of your choice for your psychology course. So how can you use this technique to make this task less stressful? So they use tomatoes. You can use whatever emoji you want, but each tomato is 25 minutes. So for the example is start researching. So you're going to spend 25 minutes finding the articles, 25 minutes reading and taking notes, 25 minutes of next article, etc. Similar to starting writing, 25 minutes drafting an outline, picking an idea and write a paragraph, etc., etc. And again, writing for hand in, proofreading in reverse, 25 minutes for that. Check the format essay, etc. Again, you don't have to utilize these techniques, but it's just a suggestion. But I know we have a smaller amount of people, but can I get a thumbs up if everyone's okay so far? And put a comment in the chat about what technique based on the Eisenhower, what was the second one? The task batching or the Pomodoro. Which one would you use on yourself if you could? Yes, Susanna, you can use the same timer you use for the kids to work on yourself. So before we get to question and answer, which technique, based on the 3 that we learned so far, which one would you use? The Pomodoro, the task batching, or the Eisenhower one? I want at least one answer before we start to go on Q&A. Task batching, perfect. Okay, so now we're going to go over the question and answers. I am going to academic advising again. Any questions? We still have advisors available for another couple more minutes. If not, give us a call tomorrow morning. Dan, how are we doing about questions in chat? I feel like everyone's been doing an excellent job so far, so thank you for helping
So
answer the
far, so good.
questions.
I am dropping the survey link for you.
Thank you
So
so
there's that
much.
as well.